Good afternoon. The time is 5:30. We'll call the May 24th, 22 meeting of the Mill Creek Township Board of Supervisors to order. Would you please rise for the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda is a promotion within the Mill Creek Police Department. Chief?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm formally requesting the promotion of Sergeant Adam Hardner to Lieutenant. Sergeant Hardner has been a member of our department for 16 years. Due to a previous retirement, Hardner is and will remain assigned to the Criminal Investigation Unit as the unit administrator. In addition to his duties as the unit administrator and oversight of the criminal investigators, he was also recently selected to the department's tactical team as the new commander. So with that, I request promotion of Sergeant Adam Hardner to lieutenant.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just would like to congratulate you on all that you've done for the police department over the last 16 years. And I got to see you and hear you, I should say, in action during your SWAT call. And I cannot tell you how much we thank you from Mill Creek Township for all that you do and continue to do for us. So congratulations.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the promotion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Block, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Lieutenant.
Congratulations, Adam.
With that, if it's okay, we'll excuse ourselves and meet with his family over in our conference room.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item is public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications. Is there any comment, public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications? Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from the May 10th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from the May 10th meeting.
I'll second that, Dan.
Thank you. Mr. Block, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is approval of the bills. Are there any comments or questions on the bills? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the bills?
Second here.
Thank you. Mr. Block, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is bids and quotations. The first item will be the demolition of 5131 Evans Road, Planning and Development Department. Ashley.
Hello, thank you. In December 2021, the township acquired the property at 5131 Evans Road. It has been used, it has used the existing residents on the site for police department and volunteer fire department training, but is now ready to demolish the existing buildings. Planning and Development sought 3 quotes for demolition, and the results are as follows. KC Demolition did not submit a quote. Safford Services did not submit a quote. And DRS of Erie County Incorporated submitted a quote for $8,500. It's the recommendation of the Planning and Development Department that the demolition of 5131 Evans Road be awarded to the low bidder, DRS of Erie County Incorporated, for the amount of $8,500. The funds will come from the Planning and Development's Evans Road property acquisition and demolition capital line item.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board?
I'd like to make a motion for the demolition of 5131 and the project being awarded to DRS of Erie County.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Block, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, Ashley.
Next item is the Oakmont and Ardmore Sidewalk Project bid announcement. Matt?
Good afternoon. On May 19th, the Planning and Development Office held a public bid opening for the Oakmont Ardmore Avenue Sideway project. 5 bids were received for this project with pricings as followed. Belvalet Concrete Construction, $237,742. Lindy Paving, $257,450. Mad Creek Construction, $266,675. Amendola Construction and Maintenance, $344,750. Steel Nation Environmental, $370,930. Funds for this project will come from the Planning and Department Capital Budget Sidewalk line item. Any overages will come from the Planning and Development Contingency line item. It is the recommendation of the Planning and Development Department to award the project to Valvolet Concrete Construction for the price of $237,742.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
I'll second, Dan.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item will be the voice recorder maintenance agreement for the Mill Creek Police Department. Mrs. Clear?
Yes, it is the recommendation of the Mill Creek Police Department to request approval for the voice recorder maintenance service agreement with Mobilecom for $1,280. This is coming out of their maintenance budget.
Okay. Any comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on the agenda is flagger training, Public Works. Rob?
Thank you. Good evening. Public Works is seeking approval to have all Public Works employees trained in flagging. Flaggers are required to be certified when flagging on any public road, and this training will provide this needed certification. We received 3 quotes for this training. The first quote was received from WM Lane LLC for the price of $5,700. The second was from Workforce Solutions of America LLC for $6,000. The last quote was from FlagSafe for the price of $6,050. Funds for this training will be taken from each Public Works Department's expense budgets, and this training could potentially be scheduled on June 2nd and June 30th to split the workforce so we don't lose our day-to-day operations. It is my recommendation to hire WM Lane LLC for flagger training for the price of $5,700.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the Council of Governments Joint Purchasing Bid Announcement for drainage pipe and catch basins, grates, and frames. Rob?
Thank you. Attached, you will see the spreadsheet for all bids received by the Council of Governments for the culvert pipe and the concrete catch basins. I have highlighted the materials we submitted a quantity for and the low bidder for each. Funding for these items will come from the Public Works expense budgets. Planning and Development and Public Works recommend awarding the following. The HDPE pipe will come from Green Distributors for the prices listed on the attached spreadsheet, and the concrete catch basins, risers, and frames and grates will come from Waterford Precast for the prices listed on the attached spreadsheet.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions from the board on this item?
Make a motion to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item would be the Mill Creek Township Milling and Paving Project 2022 bid announcement. Rob?
On May 12th, we held a public bid opening for the 2022 Mill Creek Township paving contract. This contract is for roughly 430,000 square yards of milling and paving, 34 each ADA ramps, and 2 each ADA level turning pads. We received 2 bids for this contract. The first bid was from Lindy Paving with a price of $6,630,026.58. The second bid received was from Joseph McCormick Construction with a price of $6,900,305.20. The funds for this project will come from our liquid fuel fund and our general fund. It is my recommendation to award this contract to Lindy Paving for the price of $6,630,026.58.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions or comments from the board?
Do we know, excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
how many miles of road do we know?
Currently 28.79.
Wow, that's unbelievable. That is unprecedented, actually.
It
Is that
sure
the
is.
highest? Is that the highest ever in Mill Creek Township?
To my knowledge, yes.
Yeah, I would think the average has been about 8.
The average
in
has
years
been about
past.
8.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Well, congratulations. I would like to make a motion to approve Lindy Paving and their contract for our paving contract this year.
I'll second that, Kim.
okay. Mr. Block, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mrs. Claire?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Item 8 is Resolution 2022-R24, a resolution awarding Mill Creek Township Milling and Paving Project 2022 and authorizing the use of funds provided to Mill Creek Township under the ARPA Plan 2022 for this eligible paving project. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, Resolution 2022-R24 is the form resolution we've used for purposes of documenting the spending of ARPA funds. That way we're able to establish how those funds were spent and that they were approved by the board for that spending. In our case, the ARPA funds are being used to provide government services to the extent there's been a reduction in general revenue on an annual basis. And in addition, the U.S. Treasury Department has developed a $10 million safe harbor exemption for the reduction of those general revenues. So the resolution reflects that the bids were advertised, or the paving was advertised for approximately 430,076 square yards, as well as some additional ramps that were being installed as a result of the paving, and that such work qualifies as a governmental service eligible for the funds under ARPA, and reflects the bid that you just awarded of $6,630,026.58. I would recommend approval of this resolution.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-R24.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Block, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mrs. Claire?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Item number 9 is a consideration of a small subdivision plan. Thomas and Patricia Potter, small subdivision plan, 3721 Zimmerly Road. Mr. Puz?
Yes. At the regular meeting on May 3rd, 2022, the Planning Commission recommended to approve the subdivision as presented with the condition that a modification be requested for the depth to width ratio and proposed frontage of Lot B.
They had some recommendations also.
Oh, yes. The recommendations would be a modification for the depth to width ratio of 4.5 to 1, which exceeds the 3.1 requirement, and the Lot B frontage is proposed to be 39.64 feet. 100 foot is required, and a requirement of a new highway occupancy permit may also be needed in the future before the construction of any new development occurs.
Thank you, Matt.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Shaw, did you have a comment on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, given that there are modifications that are required, let me kind of review what the board's obligations are with respect to the review of this small subdivision plan. The board has to act on all applications for subdivision and land development no later than 90 days following the date of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, next following the date on which the application was timely filed, which is being met here. The board also shall not approve any application which does not meet all of the mandatory requirements for submissions. Also, under the SALDO, all the SALDO terms and conditions are deemed to be conditions of any plan approval. Here, there is a request for a modification. The board has the authority to grant such requests to those minimum standards of the SALDO when literal compliance with mandatory provisions is found by the board to be unreasonable, to cause undue hardship, or when an alternative standard can be demonstrated to provide equal or better results. The burden of establishing that is on the applicant to show that they are entitled to that relief for a modification or waiver. And hardship can't be caused by the applicant and must involve either physical, topographical, or similar condition or a development concern unique to the property which doesn't affect generally the subdivision or development of law. In acting on an application such as this, the board shall either approve without conditions, approve with express conditions not otherwise set forth in the chapter, or deny. And if any decision on this would have to be in writing and communicated to the applicant no later than 15 days following the decision. And if the decision would be to deny it, that decision has to be in writing and shall state the board's findings of fact and the reasons for the denial.
Okay, thank you. Is this considered a hearing then at this point, or?
Yes, would that take, if the applicant is here, give them an opportunity to establish that they meet the requirements for the modifications.
Okay. All right, is Thomas or Patricia Potter here? Would you mind coming up to the podium and state your name and address for the record? And we'll go ahead and open the hearing on this matter.
Thomas Potter, 5930 Glade Drive.
I don't think it's on.
Check.
I don't think it's on.
Hello.
Is that on? Oh, that's not your department, I take it.
I'll give him yours.
Hello.
Oh,
There you go.
It is on.
there it is.
Thomas Potter, 5930 Glade Drive. Dan? Did you have questions?
Did you want to speak first on your behalf?
On dividing it? Yeah, I bought the property. It was condemned by Mill Creek Township. It was sitting there. It was blighted. I put a little over $300,000 in the house in the front. Where I live now on Glade Drive, I built in '95. It's a multi-generational home. And I got invaded by Granada. So we decided to move. And that seemed like the perfect piece of property. Well, it's on 1.67 acres. I took the front house off where my daughter, son-in-law, grandkids would live, and in the back is where me, my wife, my other grandchildren. That's why I wanted to divide it.
Sir, in terms of the frontage, the 39.64 feet, is that the maximum you can do for purposes of your subdivision?
Pardon me?
Is that the maximum width that you can do?
Yeah, it's 40 feet, but the driveway that was there, the existing driveway, because I own all of it at this point, I spoke with an attorney, that driveway, part of that driveway can become a joint driveway. And then it can fan out to go down into the back, and it can remain that way. The state was already there. I had the state there. I was going to put another driveway in, excuse me, originally, and then I changed it. That was, had a 16-foot pipe and a culvert pipe, and it was collapsed. So before we dug it up, I called the state. They come out, and I said to them, can I add a little bit to this? I hate to cut up. He said, you can put the rest of the pipe on it, which was a 20-foot length. We put the pipe in there, state come back, and they inspected it, it was fine.
Is your intent to have a shared driveway for both of those properties then?
Well, coming in, if it's going to be a problem because of the width, then that's my option. I can share the driveway.
And currently, is there an agreement in place?
Well,
for
I
the
own it all.
You own it all?
Yeah, I own it all.
But if
We have-
if the subdivision is granted and the back lot's going to be relying upon a shared driveway,
Right, that'll be documented. That's going to be recorded at the courthouse.
yeah, you'll need to have some type of
Yeah.
easement that would be recorded so
Right.
that in the future, if the lot would ever be sold, you'd, you know,
Right.
that party
And
would
it's
have.
only, what it is it's only going to be the first 30 feet, and then from there, it's got plenty of room. It's just by the road, and it's really, I'm using the driveway that was there. So it was okay for however many, 1960, so I don't know why it would be any different now. I'm just using 8 foot of it to go back, but like I said, if it's going to be a problem, then it'll be a joint driveway coming in, and I'll make it 16 feet wide, go back so far, and then go down. There was an old barn there, horse barn, a bunch of old buildings. So I've been working on it 3 years.
I think that the width to depth ratio and the frontage, though, is all, whether there's a driveway there or not, it doesn't meet our ordinance specifications.
Yeah, it would meet it because the front of it's 140 feet wide. The property is 140 feet wide, 139.6.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's only if you did. So 40,
Yeah, that's the.
if they don't put the driveway. Okay.
Okay, does the board have any other questions for Mr. Potter?
No.
Mrs. Claire, any further questions?
No other
Okay.
questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Is there anyone else here to speak on behalf of this project?
Mr. Puz, do you know if there were any other residents that appeared at the planning commission to discuss this project?
Yes, there were several neighbors, I assume neighbors that were present who brought up some concerns at the planning commission.
And what were those concerns?
Some of the concerns were about stormwater management, that Zimmerly Road needs to be, I don't know how to put this. Work needs to be done to Zimmerly Road to support the heavy construction equipment coming in. Can't think of any other concerns, but those seem to be like the two biggest.
I did read through the minutes from the planning commission meeting, yes, and there were, there was stormwater, and then there was also the neighborhood itself. Is what one of the neighbors, or I believe one of the neighbors had said that the neighborhood is made up of these, 1.5, 2 acre lots and splitting it. Wondering, I guess at resale, what would happen after resale? If it would come up for sale again, having the small lots, what would that do to the value of the property?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a
Yes, sir.
motion?
Well, hold on, we have a resident.
I'm-
Do
Oh,
you want to speak,
Sure.
sir?
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jay Pratt, my mother lives at 3649 Zimmerly Road, so I'm the next door neighbor. Still have allergy problems this week, apologize. Not sure what's going on with Mr. Potter's land. We all assumed that when the supervisors got together, things would proceed with the development. And it seems like the last couple weeks, or at least a couple weeks, things have been, there's a lot of work going on down there. No grading and digging, and I'm not sure exactly what. But I'm just curious too, how 2 more homes in this neighborhood will affect, like Supervisor Clear stated before, about how things will, like if there's for sale again or something like that with 2 homes there, actually 3 homes there. The one that's there now, then 2 more. If it's a positive impact for our area and our community, I'm 100% for it. If not, I think we need to stop, look, and think a little bit about what's going on. Several weeks ago, Mr. Potter at the meeting said he could do anything he wanted, and that concerned me a little bit. And I'm sure he'll do things by the book, but just that statement concerned me a little bit. Hopefully, none of us can, since we live in the community. Hopefully, none of us can do whatever we want, whenever we want, because we live in the community, and we must do what's best for everybody. We trust, and I trust specifically, our community leaders will do what's best for our entire township, not just, I look at the entire township, see what's best for everybody. And I think that's the bottom line. If they decide this is the best thing, I'm 100%. Just thank everybody for their time and your service to Mill Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the hearing. Is there a motion to approve this small subdivision plan? Okay, there's no motion and no second for this subdivision plan. Mr. Potter, my reluctance in voting for this this plan is the frontage. You don't have the 100-foot frontage. You need a 200-foot frontage to divide that lot properly, and that's why I'm not in favor of this.
Mr. Chair, if there's not a motion to approve, there needs to be a motion to deny.
Okay, thank you. So is there a motion to deny this small subdivision plan?
Motion to deny the small subdivision plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Well, just a second, sir.
Hold on. I'll second that motion to deny.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Sir, did you have a question?
Under the new zoning ordinance, yes. Yes, it would constitute a land development, but it would be permitted to have a second dwelling. Correct.
I understand that.
It's really not. Have somebody
Yeah.
come in here, it's got a house up there, it's 100 years old, that's sitting on a cliff, has really no property. The house is worth nothing. I took a piece of blighted property, I just had it appraised at $458,000. They're complaining? Something's not right. Something's not right. I put a lot of money in that, and I'm gonna build it.
Thank you, Mr. Potter.
If on the other subdivision, I'll own it all, and I'll build another home. And I'll get started right away. So, very unfortunate. I got news for you. If I didn't have that property, I'd get the hell out of Butler Township. I've been there 40 years. I've never, this is like ridiculous. Spent all that money to have you denied. It's ridiculous. It is. I hope you all can sleep tonight.
Next item on the agenda is a non-substantial amendment to the small subdivision plan. Intersection of West Gore and Greenwood Street, Robert and Elise Sessler developer. Mr. Puz?
Yes. The developer for this small subdivision located at the intersection of West Gore Road and Greenwood Street has made a non-substantial amendment to an approved small subdivision plat that was approved on April 19, 2022. The plat has not been recorded at this time. The amended plat shows a 10-foot water easement on parcel B, a sidewalk easement on both parcel A and parcel B, and a storm easement on parcel B. It is the recommendation of the township engineer to accept the amended plat as the non-substantial amendment meets the definition and requirements of the code of the township.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2022-R25, a resolution pursuant to Resolution 2015-R20 and the Municipal Records Manual to approve proposed disposition of certain township records. And this month will be Mill Creek Police Department dash cam videos being deleted between May 25th and June 14th of this year due to reaching the end of their required retention period.
Motion to approve Resolution 2022-R25.
Thank you.
I'll second, Dan.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is Resolution 2022-R26. Resolution of Mill Creek Township, Erie County, PA, recognizing the expiration of Mill Creek Township's right to open the portion of Plaza Drive that fronts along Lot 152 and 153 of the Westminster subdivision. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, this is received a request from a resident seeking that the township acknowledge that its rights to the paper streets described in the resolution, which also include what was formerly known as Grandview Boulevard and now known as Westminster Boulevard, from its present northern terminus at the corner of Lot 153 to what was formerly Cockwood Club Road, which is now 38th Street. Our rights to that paper street have expired. The residents' property abuts portions of those two paper streets in Westminster subdivision that have never been opened by the township or used by the public in more than 21 years. As a result, any interest in those paper streets held by the township have long expired under state law. So by this resolution, the board would recognize that the township no longer has any rights to the portions of Plaza Drive and Westminster Boulevard that have been unopened and were laid out more than 21 years ago, as described in the resolution. And further, that the resolution does not impact the existing recorded sewer easement that the township has within the Westminster Boulevard paper street, also as described in this resolution. Essentially, this will allow a portion of property. I think their intent is to acquire title, do a quiet title actions so that the adjacent property owners to the street can get title to that street. It'll then go on the tax rolls. I believe part of the impetus for this is it does appear that portion of one of the homes was built on the on the right-of-way. So I would recommend approval of this resolution.
Okay, any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would just like to say that I didn't know paper streets existed until this. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
There's
There are
plenty
many of them in Mill Creek.
Oh, yeah,
They
On
exist.
paper, just not there.
right.
Well, prior to a certain date, people would file subdivision plans showing a street to be built, but they weren't required to build them, whereas currently they are. So over time, hopefully, we'll see fewer and fewer of these, but some of the historical ones still exist.
Gets more interesting every day here. I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I will second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is Resolution 2022-R27, a resolution of Mill Creek Township Board of Supervisors adopting towing rates in accordance with Mill Creek Township Code, Section 137-28. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, under Mill Creek Code, Section 137-28, the township sets forth a process for towing companies to be approved to remove vehicles identified by the police department in accordance with the code. Section 13728 also provides that from time to time, the board is required to establish the maximum rates that approved companies may charge for the removal and storage of vehicles. The current rates for towing and storage were set by the supervisors last in 2019, and there has not been a change since then. Pursuant to this resolution, the board will be approving an increase in those rates ranging from $10 to $15 as outlined in Exhibit A. These rates will take effect on May 25 of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the towing rates.
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Resolution 2022 R28, a resolution of Mill Creek Township Board of Supervisors recognizing National Police Week and National Police Month in 2022, and honoring the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Mrs. Clear or Mr. Shaw?
Sure. Mill Creek Township would like to recognize all of the police officers in Mill Creek Township and throughout the United States that keep us safe. They put their lives on the line every day for us and to make us feel as safe as we do feel here in Mill Creek Township. I think that most of us can walk outside and not be afraid. And I would like to personally, and on behalf of the board, thank our Mill Creek Police Department for all they do every day to keep us safe. National Police Week was May 11th through May 17th. So this proclamation is declaring that, except we'll continue it on now. And National Police Month is May. So Mill Creek Township is declaring May 2022 National Police Month. So thank you for your service, and thank you for making us feel safe. I was going to read it.
Okay. Would you like to approve or make a
Oh,
motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. That was well said. We certainly appreciate our law enforcement officers here in Mill Creek and the entire area. They do a great job for us.
We have two of them here. Let's give a round of applause, maybe.
Okay, item 15 is a sale of a trailer from the Erie County Repository for Unsold Properties. Mr. Shaw?
Actually, Mr. Zakshewski. The other Mark.
This was tabled at the last meeting because there were questions as to, about that particular unit. It remains under condemnation per our code enforcement department.
Okay.
And so it would be my recommendation not to approve this sale, simply because it doesn't seem particularly fair to sell something that's currently condemned.
Okay. So are we removing it from the agenda altogether then? And
I think you've got to vote to deny the sale.
okay,
Yes.
all right.
There's also a recommendation from Krista Arnold, our Chief Code Enforcement Officer, recommending denial of the sale due to the reasons Mark stated.
Okay.
In addition, the notice of violation calls for demolition of the unit, so.
Okay. So that's, the notice of violation is currently pending?
I believe that the notice was issued, the time for appeal has expired, so it's frankly time to take action then.
I'll make a motion to deny the approval of the sale of this
I'll second that.
mobile home.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is an MOA with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, ASME, Local 3530, on summer overtime. Rob, you handling that?
Yes, this is the agreement between the township and the local AFSCME 3530, basically stating the overtime agreement for the summer between Memorial Day and Labor Day. And I would recommend approval of this.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the overtime?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Item 17 is a request to advertise sale of retired township vehicles.
The garage is seeking approval to advertise publicly the sale of 13 vehicles that no longer have a useful purpose to the township. This will be an auction-style sale with sealed bids for each vehicle being submitted to the township. Vehicles will be sold to the highest bidder. It is my recommendation to approve the sale of these vehicles from the attached list.
Thank you.
Rob, do we know when this would be taking place? I've had inquiries already.
We do not have a date set yet, but as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a quick question. How do we advertise that? I've had the same as Mr. Bach. I've had questions about when that'll take place.
It'll be a legal advertisement in the newspaper.
In the newspaper?
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe we can put it on our social media as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the sale of these retired township vehicles?
Yes. Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, next item is agreement for sale of real estate, Brooksboro Drive and McClelland Avenue. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, some months ago, the township was approached by a Mill Creek resident, Matthew Hyde, who expressed interest in acquiring the property that is owned by Mill Creek Township that is adjacent to his property. The property was designated in the subdivision map to be an extension of McClellan Street, but was never opened. Since Mill Creek holds title to the property, Mill Creek has the ability to dispose of that property. Mr. Hyde had an appraisal done of the property, which was $1,100. Under the second-class township code, the township may proceed to sell the property to Mr. Hyde for $1,100, and this agreement reflects the sale of that property to Mr. Hyde for that amount. I know that a draft of this has been sent to him. I don't know if we've received it back yet signed, so I would recommend approval subject to any minor changes that he may request that would be approved by the solicitor and the chairman.
Okay, is there a motion to approve this sale as outlined by Attorney Shaw?
Yes. Motion to approve?
And is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next item, number 19, is the agreement with the Mill Creek Paramedic Service. Mr. Shaw?
Yes, a few months ago, the township approached both the Housing and Urban Development entity and MPS regarding whether MPS could qualify to receive some of the COVID CARES Act monies, and then whether MPS had a project that fit those HUD guidelines. Fortunately, HUD and MPS were able to find a project that qualifies for CARES Act funding, specifically the purchase of 8 Lucas 3 version 3.1 chest compression systems and associated equipment and services. The Lucas chest compression system is an easy-to-use mechanical chest compression device that provides CPR to sudden cardiac arrest patients in the field. It simply wraps around the patient and automatically provides those compressions, freeing up the other MPS personnel to be doing other important things and trying to save the patient's life. This agreement outlines the process in order to get the CARES Act funding to MPS to pay for these life-saving devices.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think this is a great use of the CARES Act funding to be used here right in Mill Creek, saving the lives of our residents. So I'm going to happily approve this. Thank you.
That's a motion to approve.
Oh, motion to approve?
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Item 20 is a financial security release request from the Dollar Tree, 4234 West Ridge Road, FIDC 106 LLC developer. Mr. Puz.
Yes. The developer of the Dollar Tree, located at 4234 West Ridge Road, FIDC 106 LLC, is seeking the release of their letter of credit for this project. At this time, all required public improvements have been completed, and a reasonable conformity letter has been issued by Greenman Pedersen, Inc. That's our third-party engineering firm. It is the recommendation of the township engineer to release the financial security as all of the required public improvements have been completed.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Item 21 is a stormwater management plan and maintenance agreement for Mod Wash on West 26th Street, Hutton Erie Fillmore, PA, LLC, developer. Matt?
Yes. The developer for the Mod Wash, located on West 26th Street, Hutton, Erie, Fillmore, PA, ST LLC, has submitted a signed copy of their stormwater maintenance agreement. GPI has issued a compliance letter for the plan stating that the plan complies with the substantive requirements of the township's stormwater maintenance ordinance. It is at this time that the zoning and development officer recommends to approve the agreement as presented, as well as accept the plan as presented for the stormwater maintenance plan, as the stormwater maintenance plan meets all applicable ordinances.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board?
Make a motion to approve the stormwater management plan?
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, moving on to communications. Treasurer Communications, Mark, anything?
The only thing I have is a request to seek permission to find a part-time street light clerk for the months of June, July, and August. The volume of transactions that occur once the street light bills go out is too much for one person to handle, so we'd like to bring somebody in on a part-time basis for those months. By that time, we'll be into, by the end of August, we'll be into the second round of delinquents, so it starts tapering off pretty good by then.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, are we voting on this?
Was that in our agenda?
Yeah,
Or-
Yes.
it's a hiring request.
Hiring request.
Oh, Hiram, okay.
Okay.
May I ask a quick question, Mark?
It's out of order.
Sure.
Because you always ask this of everyone else. Is this in the budget?
Yes, because we've got monies from the temporary, the other position that is in the budget. It was unspecified as to what the position was going to be, but it hasn't been filled yet, so therefore we've got 5 months' worth of salary in bank, so to speak.
Mark Z always makes sure we're in the budget. Thank you very much, Mark, for everything.
You're welcome.
I'll make a motion to approve the part-time position.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next hiring request is for the Parks and Recreation Department. Ashley?
Hello, thank you. I am requesting, or the Parks and Recreation Department is requesting the approval of 8 more seasonal employees for our summer 2022 recreational programming and park maintenance. We are looking again to hire these people to our summer recreational program offerings and help with our park maintenance throughout our park system. The wages range for these positions from $12.50 to $15 for a supervisor position of a day camp. These are day camp employees, lifeguards, and some maintenance personnel. So it is my recommendation to retain the listed employees for the summer 2022 season at the approved pay rates.
Thank you, Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
May I ask one quick question before we move on? How many more positions do you need filled in the Parks and Rec?
Unfortunately, it's a bit of a revolving door right now, so we've lost a few, and we're trying to recoup some as well. So I still need lifeguards primarily. Or
Lifeguards,
where I'm
people. We
struggling.
need lifeguards.
But we should be able to open as scheduled.
Okay, great. So everyone, tell your children, grandchildren, apply at Mill Creek Township. It's a great place to work. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Marcella.
Okay, executive sessions were held on May 12th and the 19th to discuss various legal issues. Moving on to solicitor communications, zoning ordinance Q&A. Mark?
Yes, I have a couple of items. First is the zoning Q&A. Due to the recent passage of the revised zoning ordinance, we've prepared a question and answer document to be placed on the township website to provide additional guidance on the interpretation of the new ordinance provisions. This is similar to the Q&A that was published a few years ago when the sign ordinance was passed. We tried with this Q&A to come up with issues that we thought might come up in the future based on some of the comments received during the process of creating the new ordinance. They give kind of examples and indications of how the ordinance may be interpreted based on those examples. No votes needed by the supervisors, as this is a document created by the Planning and Development Office as a tool to be viewed by persons with questions and does not have the binding effect of an ordinance. So we're simply kind of announcing that that's soon to be available on the website.
Okay. No actions required on that?
Correct.
Okay.
Next, we received a letter from McCain Township regarding the possibility of the township's sewer system accepting wastewater flows from a proposed development in McCain at Hershey and Bargain Roads. Currently, the township sewer system only serves the township area and does not serve any other municipalities. And in fact, under the PUC rules, it cannot do so without getting PUC approval. But we can serve as kind of a bulk provider of services to adjacent municipalities. So we have inquired with Dave Wright, the Township Sewer Technical Manager, regarding the ability of the Mill Creek sewer system in that location to accept additional sewer flows. Mr. Wright has advised that the most immediate portion of the sewer system could accept additional flows. However, there is a sewer pump station downstream of that system that would not appear to have the capacity to accept any flows from an additional area without upgrades. He also indicated that upgrades at this point likely could not be completed until 2024, given the current schedule of sewer upgrades that are already planned for 2023. Based on the above, my recommendation would be to authorize a response to McCain, advising them of this capacity issue and indicating that the township is willing to discuss increasing the capacity of the pump station downstream, but that there would need to be a cost allocation associated with that project, as well as a waste transportation cost. In addition, there would need to be agreements outlining the arrangement between the township, McCain Sewer Authority, as well as the City of Erie, since ultimately all of this sewage waste goes down to the city's POTW. I have provided you with a draft of the letter for you to authorize me to send in response to this McCain letter, and I would request that you take a vote on that.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any questions from the board on this matter?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed letter from our solicitor to McCain Township.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Mark, next item?
Sure. Last item, the board recently authorized an appeal to be made to the Commonwealth Court from an adverse decision from the Erie County Court of Common Pleas relating to the township's refusal to issue a zoning permit as the proposed project was to be built across a building line. This was at Erie Court of Common Pleas, docket number 2021-11-855. The appeal was based on both the township's and the zoning hearing board's belief that the Court of Common Pleas decision was incorrect. That appeal has been filed and is pending. It's my understanding that the board would like to revisit the decision to appeal, and I would, that would, if the board decides to withdraw the appeal, that is a fairly easy process to accomplish. I should note that the property owner needs to understand that if the appeal is withdrawn, their project is still subject to possible challenge by any of the other property owners of the subdivision in which they live due to their project going across the building line. People who live in that subdivision have a separate and independent right to enforce those types of limitations. They assume, by doing so, they assume the risk that a adjacent or a property owner within that subdivision could do so, and they assume the risk that the possible result of that would be that they would need to remove that project. The potential that that project may be removed is the risk of the property owner who's installing the project, should they choose to move forward, and the township will accept no responsibility or liability should that occur.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any comments or questions from the board on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to withdraw the appeal, the docket number 2021-11855. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mrs. Clear?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right, moving on to citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens to be heard? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kathy Appleby. I live at 2916 Broad Lawn Drive. I had two different things written. When I saw that this docket number was ours, I had a different paper than I have right now. I'm quite relieved to hear the board has withdrawn their appeal of Judge Mead's ruling. Bob and I have spent hundreds of hours combing over everything from our initial request for a building permit to what has transpired today. When I first suggested to Bob that we build a porch, he was adamantly against it. After lengthy discussion, he agreed that if I really wanted a porch, we would apply for a building permit. Never in our wildest dreams could we imagine that we would end up in an 18-month battle with the township zoning department and supervisors. 13 years ago, Bob had aortic valve surgery and a number of global strokes. I'm thankful for every day we have together. We've been married 49 years. Almost on a daily basis, I tell friends and family to live life to the fullest while you can. Bob and I know how important that is. We're looking forward to sitting on our porch and talking with passersby. Again, we're relieved the board has come to this conclusion and we can move on with our plans. I want to state that I sincerely thank all of our neighbors and family and friends for supporting us, and also the media who I don't see here, but I know that they took a part in this. It really does take a village. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Why did you not solicit the signatures of the residents for this? You were given that option, correct?
Attorney Shaw met with myself and my husband and Matt Waldinger, and he told us that he had all these sheets and said we could go to each one of our neighbors.
Correct.
Ask them to please say it's okay for us to build. It would have to be notarized right there and then. And if we even had one person that said they wouldn't do it, then we didn't have a leg to stand on. And that is why we went to the zoning department and we went through hell, as far as I'm concerned. And That's why we took it as far as we did. If one person
Okay.
would have not even, there are 2 families on my block.
Well, according to Mr. Shaw, that could still occur right now.
I understand,
There-
but there are 2 elderly people on my block. They don't even know what's going on. And they are in the care of family and friends. Those people are not going to do this, and I know that. There was no recourse. There was no recourse for us, but that's why.
Okay. Well, I just want to let you know that my vote here tonight had nothing to do with the social media criticism that I feel this board is not deserving of, nor do I feel our planning and development department is deserving of. So, you know,
Well, my family still has a few things to say also.
okay, well, I'm just letting you know that I'm defending our planning and development department, and I just think it was the wrong avenue to take. And my vote tonight had nothing to do with that. It was the right thing to do, regardless of how we were portrayed.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Sir? You state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is William Jordan. I live at 4264 Stone Creek Drive. It's in the Whispering Woods development. I've come here for some help. Across from my house is a undeveloped hillside. It has 3 lots on it, lot number 138, 140, and 142. 8 years ago, these lots were cleared of vegetation in preparation of homes to be built, we assumed. Since then, that has not occurred. On on a fairly regular basis, the owner of these lots goes back to those lots and excavates, removes material, sends them to other lots. Some of them they own, some are other developers. This is a hillside. There is very, very minimal silt storm runoff protection going on. There's 3 silt socks that have been placed on an access drive, if you want to call it. I took video of last weekend's rain. Mud was just pouring down off of this hillside. They recognize that to the degree that upstream of these very minimal and effective silt socks that were placed, they actually dug ditches to divert the water and mud away from those socks, knowing that they would be overwhelmed. This thing goes down the hillside, into the street, and a lot of it gets caught in a storm drain, which then discharges into Walnut Creek. Our development has a lot of settling ponds. This water is not going to any of those settling ponds. This is going straight into Walnut Creek. It's my understanding that this is not permitted in our stormwater permit for Whispering Woods, nor any development stormwater plan. It'd be different if a house was being built. Well, it'd still be unacceptable for the amount of runoff that's happening, but at least you'd recognize it's a temporary situation. This has been 8 years. He's not building foundation. He's essentially running a open mining operation to take fill, and I'm assuming, and again, I can't speak for it, I'm assuming that this is being sold to other developers in the area to fill in their properties for whatever his own purposes are. So asking for some type of relief. Again, I have videos of this going down the hill, into the street, and into Walnut Creek, but it really needs to end.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
The entity that you should reach out to that governs these types of things, I believe, would be the Erie County Conservation District.
Okay.
And their number is, if you have a pen, 825-6403. And I can give it to you after the meeting
Okay,
as
great.
well.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But that, they typically handle those types of things in the township as opposed to the township doing it, so.
Okay, okay. I know a lot of times people say, well, he's got a building permit, he's got a permit. And my argument is, he's not building.
Yeah, but even if he's building, there should be some controls that are in place, and
Correct.
Erie County Conservation District typically is the entity that oversees that.
Okay, I'll get that number from you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Sir? If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Robert Umpleby. I live at 2916 Broadlawn Lodge Drive. Originally, I came here today to state for the record the ill feelings I have for all the members of the Mill Creek Township administration who were either involved directly or implicitly for the year plus of distress and injustice my wife Kathy and I have had to endure just for wanting to add an open porch to our property, a structure specifically allowed by zoning ordinance 145-19F. While today's vote brings much relief, it does little to change my feelings toward the individuals who played a part in this matter. The list of individuals is former Supervisor John Morgan, current Supervisors Dan Olet and James Bach, solicitors Mark Shaw and Attorney Lydia Caparosa, zoning officers Matt Puz and Matt Waldinger, and the zoning hearing board consisting of board members Tanner, Martin, Calhoun, and former zoning hearing board advisor attorney Richard Perhax. We should have been issued a building permit at a cost of $50. However, due to zoning officer Matt Puz's error of law and abuse of discretion, we have now spent over $8,200 in appeal and litigation fees. All of these costs, as well as the over $24,000 the township has spent on this case, could have and should have been prevented. If Mr. Puz and Mr. Waldinger had done any research on the definition of building line when Westminster Colony was developed, they would have found that the definition at that time was that no enclosed structure could be built beyond the building line. Obviously, an open porch is not an enclosed structure. This fact alone should have been the end of this whole ugly affair. Shame on them for not knowing this. Also in the township's intervenor brief, they acknowledge one way to modify or remove the recorded building line, not that it was necessary, would be for the township to record a new subdivision map. My guess is this could have been done easily, quickly, and certainly at a much less cost than has spent thus far on litigation. Certainly this would have been less cumbersome and cheaper than the asinine remedy proposed by Attorney Shaw and Caparosa of getting notarized signatures of all 56 residents in the subdivision. Shame on the supervisors and solicitors for their action or inaction. I would be very remiss if I did not touch on the zoning hearing board's appalling behavior during the appeal hearing, from Attorney Caparosa's objection to our son Michael presenting our case for my wife and I, to the very end when Tanner warned our neighbors who were there to support us They could speak, but it better be new and it better be pertinent. Most of our neighbors felt intimidated and chose not to speak. The zoning hearing board was a complete embarrassment for the Mill Creek community. Among other things, they were unprofessional, rude, disrespectful, at times condescending, and completely devoid of any empathy for the very emotional situation. When my wife Kathy became emotional during her presentation, she pleaded for help with this matter. Tanner quickly told her the board was not there to help anyone, only there to listen to facts. How true that turned out to be. As the meeting wore on, it became obvious the only fact to garner the board's interest was the Saldo's definition of building line. The board gave no consideration to our argument that the terms building line and building setback line have been used interchangeably for years, and there is ambiguity in their use. As the meeting moved on, the board's only interest was bringing the proceeding to an end. They were concerned that it was getting late and they wanted to make sure they could get home by midnight. Lastly, if you supervisors have even one little bit of empathy for the tribulation the township has put my wife and I through in this past year, we are requesting the township to refund to us the $1,000 we believe we were fleeced out of by the zoning hearing board, which was anything but independent and unbiased in that hearing. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else wishing to, sir, come on up.
Here we go.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Michael Umpleby. My address is 165 Pinehurst Drive in Cranberry Township, PA, 16066. This is clear. I'm sorry that you're sitting there to hear this. This is not directed at you. Please understand. I'm sure that there are instances when the process of approving or denying an application for a building permit is complicated. But when the zoning ordinance specifically allows for that which is being requested, I would think the process becomes much simpler. My parents requested a building permit to add a 24-foot by 10-foot porch to the front of their home. It would not get any closer to the properties on either side, and it would cross the required front yard setback only 6 feet. The Mill Creek Township zoning ordinance states the following: an open porch may be erected in a front yard extending for a distance of not more than 10 feet beyond the required building setback line, provided that it is located no closer to an adjoining lot's property line than the required width of the side yard, point blank and period. This clear language specifically allows for a porch that my parents intend to build. The zoning officer, Matthew Puz, erred in denying their request for a building permit. He was citing provisions from the Saldo concerning building lines that do not apply. Unfortunately, what should have taken a few days and $50 has now taken well over a year and cost my parents several $1,000s. My parents were certain that Mr. Puz was wrong to deny their request for a building permit, so they decided to appeal. For the $1,000 fee, they expected a fair and impartial hearing. Fair and impartial it was not. Understandably, my parents were very emotional, and they were nervous with the process. My mother asked the zoning hearing board if I could speak on their behalf. Lydia Caparosa, solicitor for the township, immediately objected and questioned how I was qualified to represent them. I was polite in my response. I explained that I have been working in the insurance industry for more than 20 years, that I read policies and legal documents regularly, so I was comfortable speaking about how the zoning ordinance applied to my parents' situation. I am not an expert when it comes to zoning, but I pored over the saldo and the zoning ordinance, and I recognize that these sections are separate and distinct. Lydia's objection seemed to set the tone for the rest of the hearing. The zoning hearing board was cordial when they were addressing the solicitor and the zoning officer, but they were rude and confrontational when they were speaking to me or my parents. The difference was noted by residents that were in attendance for their own zoning matters. Several people came up to us and said that they could not believe how confrontational the zoning hearing board was towards us. My parents' neighbors, who were there to voice support, did not feel comfortable addressing the zoning hearing board after witnessing their adversarial behavior. If the zoning hearing board is allowed to create this type of atmosphere, how can a hearing be fair and impartial? If you were not there, I encourage you to watch the video. Here's just a few low points. Mr. Perhacs mocked me when I was trying to explain the difference between the regulations in the zoning ordinance and the saldo. He said that it was my argument that the day after the house was built, that I believed nothing mattered and my parents could do whatever they wanted. Obviously, that was not the point I was trying to make. And I'm sure that Mr. Perhacs would find much less humor in my argument now. When the solicitor questioned Mr. Puz and asked him to read from the zoning ordinance, he was allowed to do so. But when I asked him to read from the zoning ordinance, the zoning hearing board said that he did not have to, that they could read it for themselves. Mr. Tanner shouted over my father like a parent scolding a child. My father was trying to point out the ambiguity of defined terms when Mr. Tanner cut him off, shouting, "Sir," to quiet him. If anyone had a right to be heard, it was the individual that paid $1,000 for that opportunity. After Mr. Tanner's display, I said that I had one more thing to mention. Mr. Perhacs said, "Well, it better be something new." I asked if any residents had voiced opposition to my parents' permit request, since the township had posted a notice in their yard and ran an article in the newspaper. The zoning hearing board response was that they did not have to give that information. But I'm sure that if anyone had objected, the zoning hearing board would have been quick to let us know. Mr. Calhoun seemed to be completely disinterested in our case. After the zoning hearing board returned from deliberating, they shared their votes with those in attendance. When the members of the zoning hearing board were called on to vote publicly, Mr. Calhoun did not even know what case was being discussed. Someone reminded him that it was my parents' case regarding the porch, and he responded, "Oh, I agree, appeal denied." In the meeting, my parents were told the same fairy tale about how they could obtain relief from the building line that appears on their neighborhood plat from the early 1950s. They were told to obtain notarized signatures from all of the other homeowners in their subdivision. The zoning hearing board incorrectly upheld the erroneous decision of Mr. Puz, who cited conditions in the saldo that do not apply. The zoning hearing board should have been guided by the clear language in the zoning ordinance that specifically allows for my parents' front porch. I feel that the zoning hearing board ignored the points I was making just because I am not an attorney. Mr. Perhacs is, Lydia Caparosa is, Mark Shaw is. Why is it that none of these individuals even considered what I was saying? I wonder, did anyone actually look into this at all? Or was my parents' application simply denied based on an incorrect belief that a front porch is not allowed? My parents did not get the fair and impartial hearing that they paid for. Their $1,000 should be returned. My mother was ready to give up after the zoning hearing board meeting. She was completely deflated. I was angrier than ever, and so was my father, and I was glad that my parents decided to appeal the board's denial. My parents' attorney echoed what I was saying, that the saldo did not apply and that the zoning ordinance explicitly allows for their porch. Finally, we got our victory. Judge John J. Mead ruled in our favor. In his ruling, he says, "It is well-established law that the construction of an open porch on an already existing home is not a land development which would be subject to the regulations of the saldo." The judge cited several examples of applicable case law. Again, I say, why is it that none of the 3 attorneys for the township recognized this well-established law. The judge also wrote, "The court finds that the board erred in denying appellant's appeal of the denial of the construction permit. Therefore, the court finds that the board's adjudication was not in accordance with the case law, nor was it supported by substantial evidence." And then what did the township do? They waited until there was 10 minutes left on the last day of a 30-day appeal period, and they filed an appeal of Judge Mead's ruling. Hadn't the township put my parents through enough over the past 18 months? Now, you may have voted today to withdraw your appeal, but that does not erase what has transpired since November of 2020. The cost of my parents out of pocket is $8,000 so far in litigation. The taxpayer costs are more than $24,000. The increased cost of construction because of the delay is now over $14,000 more. The worst thing for me is the lost time. We all only have so many days. Our tickets are all going to be punched someday. They've spent the last 18 months fighting with you over something that they should have been given when they applied for it. Former Supervisor John Morgan, current supervisors Dan Olette and James Bach, solicitors Mark Shaw and Lydia Caparosa, zoning officers Matt Puz and Matt Waldinger, the zoning hearing board members Mr. Tanners Martin and Calhoun, and former zoning hearing board attorney Richard Perhax. All of you failed my parents. All of you cost my parents thousands of dollars to fight for something that they were entitled to have. All of you stole more than a year of their time that they cannot get back. Regardless of what you do going forward, that is how I'm going to remember each of you. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Sir?
We have us well trained, so I'll start with my name and address. So I'm Rob Uppleby. I live at 4510 McCreary Road, so I'm a Mill Creek resident. My children go to Mill Creek schools. We've been here about 5 years. Bob and Kathy Uppleby are my parents, and I'm proud of them for standing up for their right to improve their property in the face of obviously what has been fierce opposition on the part of a number of officials for this township. You know, I'd like to preface what I'm going to say by saying that I've never been a public servant. I've never done what you people do on a daily basis. I've spent my career in industry, so I can't possibly understand what it's like to do what you do. I imagine that it's a difficult job, and probably many days it's thankless. I respect what you do. I genuinely appreciate it, so thank you. I do my best. I can't possibly be completely unbiased, right? These are my parents, right? But I'll give it a try, right? And try to take the position of as just a Mill Creek resident in all of this. Look at this from just a slightly different lens, with a different lens if I can. How is Mill Creek Township currently serving the public good of our township in cases like this type of a zoning concern? We have a copy with us of Judge Mead's ruling, which Mike just referred to. And when you read that, I mean, Mike's got it. He's got it right. If you haven't read it, you can certainly read it. There was a lack of evidence presented by our township. There was a lack of case law in support of our township. As a township, we got crushed. We got crushed. By Bob and Kathy Uppleby, we got crushed in this case. And I'm with them. Of course, we're very grateful for the reversal of the decision by our supervisors. Thank you for that. And I say that with sincere gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. But we got crushed. It wasn't even close. And then, well, Mike said it. I was here that night. It was a couple of painful hours to sit there through that hearing. To tell them the truth. Other residents will tell you that was anything but an independent hearing. They looked down on Mike because he wasn't an attorney, you could tell. It was very frustrating. But he was right. If you compare the transcript from that night, and it's on audio too, if you don't want to read the transcript, you can get the audio recording. It's all there. And then you compare what Attorney Rhodes wrote in the brief, which ultimately was read by Judge Mead, and Judge Mead then agreed with it. They were essentially the same argument. Mike had it right that night. But it was anything but an independent zoning hearing board. So it didn't matter what Mike was saying. So I'm going to point out what I think is the cold hard fact that on that night, in this case, Mike Umpleby, a claims adjuster for Erie Insurance, it pains me to admit how smart he is because he's my brother, right? He knew the relevant ordinances better than the legal professionals of this township that night. How is that? He knew it better than the zoning hearing board. He knew it better than perhaps the attorney who was advising that hearing board. He knew it better. How are our legal professionals in Mill Creek Township, the people to whom they report, and the zoning hearing board, including their advisor, how are they serving the public good when this is the situation? That someone like that can come in knowing more than they do. Another fact, we've heard it. Did you know, people in the audience, that it takes $1,000. If a Mill Creek resident has their building permit denied, it costs them $1,000 just to come and make their argument before this so-called independent hearing. $1,000? Really? First, how is that not blatantly prejudiced against people who can't afford that? I'm not saying that residents shouldn't have some skin in the game. I get that. I'm not sure I disagree that there should be something that the resident has to put in on this. But $1,000, is that the fair price for a Mill Creek resident? I don't know what that price is, but I think it's closer to zero than $1,000. I get that there's a cost associated with these hearings. Heaven knows there's a cost. You've got the attorneys and other professionals involved. But man, where do we look for that money? It's a fair question on behalf of Mill Creek. Well, where are we going to find that money if we don't charge residents? Well, we found a bucket to spend the $24,000 to get crushed in court. Maybe start there. We could have had 24 of those hearings for the price of what would cost us to fight a resident on a porch. My last fact that I'd like to point out. We're all Mill Creek residents here. To the extent possible, we should be for each other. I'm not saying residents are always right. We're not. We're not. In the legal and the zoning board, it always has its place. No argument. No argument. But what happens the next time a resident comes to the township wanting to make an improvement to their property, which I should think is a win for everybody. Everybody. They get to improve their property. The value of the property presumably goes up because it's been improved, so the tax revenue is higher, right? So who loses in that? The only ones that won in this case were the attorneys, right? So what happens to the next round? That's water over the dam. We can't get their time back. We can't get that money back. The township, we can't get our money back as a township. That 24 grand that's already been spent, it's gone. Okay, fine. But what about the next resident? What about the next resident? Are we going to say, well, okay, you know, there's some concern about the legality of the improvement you want to make to your property, so give us $1,000 and then we'll hear you out. And then, by the way, it might not be an independent hearing that you get. Oh, and we might just spend tens of thousands of dollars fighting you tooth and nail to the point that you begin to ask yourself, do you even want to live here anymore? We want more than that, don't we? So I'm going to ask, not on behalf of Bob and Kathy Umpleby, that time, that money's gone. On behalf of the next resident, who's one of us, can we at least, please, consider the policies that are in place today. Consider perhaps some of what transpired, perhaps some of the behavior on the part of certain individuals in all of this. And see if we can't do better for the next resident. I leave it in the hands of our elected leaders to decide if that's possible. And I'm sincerely grateful for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Committee.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment?
I think you know who I am, but for the record, John Grow, 603 Montpelier Avenue. I'm a former township supervisor, as you guys know. Before that, I had 30 years' experience working in building and zoning code administration. I'm also an instructor of building and zoning codes for the Pennsylvania Association of Boroughs. I do know a little bit about this stuff. I sometimes jokingly say that you could put 12 zoning officers into a room to discuss one topic and you'll come up with 13 different opinions. I had a much different opinion than what the zoning department here offered to Mr. and Mrs. Umpleby. And for the record, Mrs. Umpleby is my sister-in-law. She is my wife's sister. I think you knew that already. She was also my campaign manager when I ran for re-election. So these are facts that are already known. No sense in trying to hide them. So I won't go through everything that you've already heard before about that, but I'm going to say that I've stayed out of this matter completely until tonight. I want to say you did the right job, the right action tonight by withdrawing that appeal. Thank you for doing that. That was the right thing. And I will go back to why I disagreed with the zoning department right off the bat. And Mark, I think you said it, that this is a matter for the subdivision itself. And that's the approach that I would have taken on that. It's just, hey, look at the zoning ordinance. If that is something that is a subdivision covet, so to speak of, let the subdivision handle it. Let a neighboring property owner who is affected by it, let them challenge it in court. Let them take the Umplebys to task on that. It's not a township matter. That's the way I look at it, but then again, maybe I'm a little more conservative when it comes to property rights and allowing people to do things. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that there. Yes, you did the right thing tonight there. Thank you for doing that there. Okay, one more thing there, and I thank you for making the comments about our police officers, because as we know, we have the finest here in the tri-state area. Two things to keep that going: fund them and staff them and keep that going. That's the way we will keep to have the best department here, always, okay? One final comment here. When you are an elected official, myself included, there's gonna be crap out there on any sort of social media. It comes with the territory. You need thick skin. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
A second? Okay, meeting's adjourned at 7:04. Thank you.